back to the second part of the 4 invisible signs you may not get hired back. I covered the first 2 signs in the last episode. So if you are jumping into this episode and you want to go in order, go back and look at the last episode. I'm going to cover 2 other additional signs, invisible signs that you may not be on track to get hired back. And in summary of the last session, I'll say this. This is my experience. My disclaimer is this. I've worked inside a number of different firms. I've consulted with many firms, dozens of firms. I've worked with leadership in firms, and I have worked through retention issues with firms who have not received the kind of work product from their associates and their students that they were hoping for, and looking for ways in which we can communicate better to students in particular and associates as well to ensure that they're aware of what the expectations are of their firm. And I think generally we can do a better job of that. So that's what this episode is about. Looking for the invisible signals if you're not getting clarity, and looking at course correcting as quickly as possible. Welcome to the Lawyer Launcher Podcast. Hello, friends. I'm your host, Susan Van Dyke. If you're a law student or a new lawyer eager to launch a successful career, you're in the right place. Drawing on more than 25 years of experience, I'll demystify the business of law and help you understand just what it takes to succeed. We'll empower you, help build confidence, and reduce anxiety. Our experts will share tips and advice, and I can't wait for you to hear from them. Now, let's dive in. So, I'm looking at my experience, my point of view. It may not apply to every firm, so take this with a bit of a grain of salt. And the second thing that I'll say is it's important that you change potentially your mindset and your frame of mind from coming from previous employment situations where you may have had a 9-to-5 job. It may have been clocking in and clocking out. A lot of us have done those jobs as we were in college and university. In the practice of law, it's about professionalism, investing in yourself, investing in your firms, and doing your very best work out the gate. The standards are high. Your expectations, I know, of yourself are high, and the expectations of your firm is quite high. Not to say we're not looking for perfectionism. We're not looking for you to, hit it out of the park every time, because you're learning and growing as you go. But there are certain expectations that you should be aware of and that you'll be evaluated on before you start. So let's get started and talk about the next 2 invisible signs. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt really quickly. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And while you're at it, why don't you shoot this episode to somebody who could use it? Just send it off. Send it off to 2 or 3 people. Let them know that you're thinking of them and you thought of them as you were listening to this episode, because something in here is relevant for them. And you're going to do them a huge favor by sharing this episode with them. So while you're thinking of it right now, while I'm interrupting this episode, shoot them that share button and get it into somebody else's hands so they get the help that they need as well. Thank you. So if you're jumping into this episode, we're not talking about the obvious signs, we're talking about the subtle signs, because as much as firms intend to be really clear and transparent with students and associates for that matter, they're usually not, my experience has been, they're usually not as communicative as they mean to be. And time is short, time is precious, and sometimes giving feedback can be really difficult. So don't assume that no news is good news. We want to make sure that you are actually taking responsibility and actually being as observant as possible and taking action as quickly as possible when you can. So let's start with one of the clearest signals, and a signal that students almost most certainly will miss or potentially will miss. And that signal is when people don't come back to you who have given you work in the past. So we're going to go, I touched on this in the last episode, we're going to go a little bit deeper. What does this look like? This looks like you're getting work, but it's always from different people. The same lawyer doesn't come back to you, and potentially somebody else ends up working on the file and effectively kind of replacing you. So if you're noticing that at some point somebody is choosing not to come back to you, and it could be for a number of reasons, and I'm taking this as a signal that is probably not positive, because at some point you've got to think, I worked with them once, but I'm not getting more work from them. And the lawyer, in the lawyer's mind, they're thinking, I've worked with them once, but I'm not working with them again. And for some reason, and they might have given you neutral feedback, they might have not been completely honest. And that's not entirely fair, and it's not entirely your fault. But we want to make sure that you are looking at ways in which you can get clarity or you can pivot. So what does this actually mean? Lawyers go back to people who, students especially and associates, who make their life easier, people who can deliver clean work that is ready to be applied to the file within reason. They're going to have to review it and perhaps make some changes. But the more advanced the work is, the easier it is on the lawyer and the easier it is to work with you. If you didn't require follow-up, that's a really good sign. But if you're requiring a lot of follow-up and somebody's coming to you and saying, how are you doing on that? And it's not just they're checking in, but they're concerned about the deadline, that's not a good sign. If you don't hear, hey, can you come and help me again? You did a great job. Let's continue on this file together. Can you do this assignment again for a different client? If there's not a follow-up piece to it, that may not be a great sign. I would also be weary if somebody else ends up on the file that you are working on and you've been effectively replaced. If you're uncertain, you might, and if you have the courage, you might go and check and say, I was working on this file. I was really enjoying working with you on this. I know I did this piece of work. I didn't get any constructive feedback. It seemed like it went well, but if I have an opportunity to work on this file with you again, I would really appreciate that. It would be of interest to me because I feel like I'm a little bit more familiar with the file. That's totally fair. And you may get an honest answer and you may not. As I said earlier, it's hard for some people to give honest feedback. So you're going to have to use your spidey senses in some respects. So at some point, you think, I worked with them once, but I didn't work with them ever again. I would look a little deeper into the situation because quite often this is a decision that somebody has made, not just a neutral kind of outcome. They have considered you and they have made an assessment and they've moved on in many cases. And they also will give work to those who are looking available and looking visible. If you have received an assignment and you squirrel away at your desk or your office and you're not really that visible and you're not connecting with that lawyer, with people in the office that you're working with, that's not a great sign. And people will wonder, are you working on it? Are you in the office? Are you making progress? Have you checked in? Have you connected with people you're working with? Are you on track? So make sure you're visible and make sure that you are connecting with people that you're working with. That's going to be really important. So getting work doesn't mean you're doing well. Getting repeat work from the same people is a very good signal. So if you continue to get work, people return to you, that's great. Not always, but often that's probably a good signal. But if the work is not being returned to you by the regular lawyers and regular people in your office, that may not be a great signal. So why people might miss this is you might feel like I'm busy, I must be doing fine. So busyness is not necessarily a good sign. We can all keep busy on a variety of things that aren't productive. So busyness is not necessarily a good sign, but firms are watching. They're watching, who do we choose to go back to? That's what starts to form hiring decisions. When I've been in rooms of partners talking about hirebacks of students, maybe there's a new associate, even a lateral hire who's new in the firm, and they're talking to one another about, have you worked with this person? What's been your experience? There can be very different experiences. We're all human and we work differently and we connect differently with different people. But if there are repeatedly comments about an individual that was late or not delivering expectations or were just difficult to work with, and that starts to form a pattern, that's not a great sign for you. It's going to be difficult to recover from that. It's not impossible, but it will be difficult to recover from that. And of course, you're not in the room, so you don't always know. But these are some of the things that I've heard. And yet again, you can have, or I should say, and conversely, you can have somebody in the room who has had a really great experience with you, and they can be an anomaly. And if they have somebody who has the respect of their partners, they will give that student, that associate, another chance. So it's not a total loss if you have a few people who've had a bit of a, not so great experience with you. If you can find one person that is working really well with you, that can help. That can go a long way. So if you can re-engage, so here's what I want to say, how to fix this. If you can re-engage with the lawyers you used to work with, who used to assign you work, that's ideal. I would go back to them and say, I haven't received any work from you for a few weeks now. I just want to make sure that I'm well positioned to get work from you. I think my last assignment was a little bit late, or it may not have met your expectations. I'm really open to your feedback. And if you can try again with me, I'd really like to give it another go. And then if you get that opportunity, you overservice that person, you overservice that work. If you don't get a chance to work with that former lawyer or lawyers again, and you've tried everything you can, you need to develop a new pipeline for yourself, a new pipeline of work. And I would look around the firm and I would look to see who is well positioned, who's influential. It might be a senior associate, it might be a new partner, it's somebody who is really busy, it might be somebody who originates a lot of work. It could be a lot of different reasons why somebody's well positioned, but find a new champion, find a new person, go and sit with them and ask them if they will give you a chance and start sending you work. And when they do, really, again, take it extra seriously and work it hard, over service, and make sure you really understand the instructions before you leave their office or you finish a call with them. So close every assignment properly. So just don't submit the work after it's done and disappear. I want you to submit the work and follow up with a thanks. Thanks again. I enjoyed working on this. It was interesting for this and that reason. I would be really happy to help you again if anything comes up. And in the meantime, I'm open to feedback. That's simple, but it's pretty powerful. It signals that the work matters to you and that you want to get more work. I would also make yourself really easy to work with. Ask yourself honestly, did they have to chase me? Did I miss any details? Did I create any extra work for them? Was there any friction in the working with me? So I would just really be reflective as you are course correcting and creating that new pipeline for yourself and developing a new relationship, perhaps with a new lawyer. Really make sure you're extra aware of how the assignment is going. And I would also check in periodically or update the lawyer you're working with periodically of how you're doing. So I would follow up strategically. If someone hasn't come back to you, I would go to them and say, hi, I really enjoyed working with you on this file, and I wanted to check in, and if anything similar comes up, I'd be very interested in helping again. If you have a really good piece of work and you overwork it or you're not meeting expectations, it's going to be very difficult to get a new assignment and build trust. We're building trust with new people, and we want to make sure we are closing the gaps of expectation and delivery. So important that you understand what the expectations are so that you can deliver. I'd like to say a couple things about working from the office versus working from home. For some of you who are working from home and you are maybe you're working 1 day a week at home, maybe 2 days a week at home, I would really be mindful. If you are feeling precarious in your position, I would really consider working from the office full time. And that might be a controversial statement, but I really believe that physical visibility is going to be your friend. And I mean, yes, we can Zoom, yes, we can go on Teams, but it's just different. As you walk the hall and you're getting your lunch, you're getting some water, you are having occasional micro moments in connecting with people. Your visibility is going to really serve you well, provided you're making appropriate use of those micro moments, darkening doorways, following up with people physically, not sending yet another email. We all have too much email. We don't need more email. So making sure that you're using that physicality and showing up in the office. If there's people there, if it's you and, no lawyers, then that may not serve you well. But I would definitely consider visiting the office more and actually working full time, going in early and staying late. Not really late, but, if you can stay until, most people have left. And so that you're always appearing to be working hard, hopefully you are, and that you're visible in the office. If you are working from home and you need to work from home, I would be really more intentional about making sure that you are connecting with people online, that you are popping in. If some people are on Teams really informally and they pop in and out of Teams, or using Slack, I would use all the technology available to you to stay in touch with people. So I would send a message out on Slack or Teams or whatever it is that you use, just signaling you're available in the afternoon. Maybe you have a deadline in the morning, but you expect in the afternoon you're going to have availability. You could send out that message every day if it wasn't an overuse of the application, and just let people know what your availability is, because at times there's last minute requests. And if you're one of few people that's available, somebody might be really delighted that you have capacity. And again, when you get that assignment, you want to really make sure that you nail it. So the key takeaway here is firms don't hire based on a single assignment. They're going to look at how you've advanced over time. They're going to look at the quality of your work, the relationships that you have built, who you have impressed. So at that point, the dance isn't over yet. The music is still playing. We want you to really develop that new pipeline and really over-service that lawyer and be super aware and make sure that you're hitting your marks as much as possible. And if you don't know, just ask. The second signal is one students often misunderstand because it can feel like a positive signal at first. And it's this: you're getting a lot of feedback from the lawyers that you're working with. Now, I've talked about, when lawyers are investing in you and spending time with you and giving you feedback and mentoring you, generally it's a great sign, because usually people aren't investing in you if they don't see value in the return of that investment. But I will say there are exceptions to this rule. If you're getting lots of comments, if you're getting really detailed corrections, at first you might think, wow, they're investing in me. This is great. And sometimes that might be true. I've worked with lawyers who are very exacting, very exacting. They like things in a very particular way. And you might check with their assistant or the team that they work with to see if that's just how they roll, because it might just be how they roll. But sometimes it's also not true. So over time, if your drafts are being heavily rewritten, if the same issues are coming up repeatedly, if they're spending a lot of extra time fixing your work, and you can always ask, like, oh, should this work have been more advanced? Are you finding you're spending more time on my work than you expected? How can I improve? Do ask, do open up that conversation and see, because at a certain point, this becomes about effort. The effort of the lawyer to course correct your work, and it's taking more time than it should. And then a law firm that matters, right? The time that we all spend on files and client work, eventually you're going to be recording all that time and hopefully billing the vast majority of that time. Right now it's getting written off, and that's perfectly fine. But the lawyers that are working with you and overseeing you and your mentors and your principal, they want to minimize the time. They're investing. They know they're investing. They're going to want to minimize the time that they work on this. In course correcting for students. So lawyers don't just evaluate how good is your work, they're going to evaluate how much work does it take to get you there. That's one of the evaluative measures they're looking at. If your work creates more work for the assigning lawyer, you may not get more work. And that's going to be a problem when you're looking to create a pipeline of work, flow work to you, and really develop deep and meaningful relationships with assigning lawyers. So why does this matter? Even if you're smart, even if you're hardworking and engaged, why does it matter if you're getting too much feedback? It's becoming harder to work with you. So how do we fix this? Right up front, if you're seeing this and you're getting a real intuitive sense that you're frustrating somebody you're working with, you're getting these kinds of signals, how do we course correct? This is what we're going to do. We're going to get better instructions right up front. We're going to manage up, because some lawyers are just not good at giving instructions. Some lawyers don't give great feedback. We're all human. We all have various strengths and various challenges. Some just don't give good instructions. They can be the best lawyer in the world, best lawyer in the firm, the most successful lawyer in the firm, but they can be short on time, short on patience, stressed, and just not hitting the mark as much as they would normally like to in giving instructions to a junior. So before you get instructions, before you start, I want you to ask, just so I'm approaching this the right way, what would the outcome of this assignment look like if it was done perfectly? Or how is this being used? Who's the audience? Who's the end user? Am I writing this for you, or am I writing this for your client, where it's going to go directly to the client after your review? So who should I be thinking about with the audience? So get clarity on the instructions that you're getting. What format should it be in? what does this look like? So in terms of the end product, what are you expecting? How long should it be? Get as many detailed descriptions about the end product so you have real clarity about what that looks like and what the expectations are. Clarify early, not late. If you find yourself working on an assignment and you think, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask a certain question. I didn't know I would need this clarification. Find your way back to the lawyer and ask if you can quickly confirm part of the assignment. And that shows that you are concerned about the use of your time. It shows good judgment. It shows that you are signaling that you want to meet expectations. So go back and clarify before you get further down a rabbit hole and go completely in the wrong direction. Believe me, it's better to ask and course correct than carry on the wrong path, because what you deliver in the end may not be hitting the mark. Next thing I want you to do in course correcting this is use internal resources and support. So before starting, we want to use internal resources. Is there a law librarian that can help you? If you're lucky enough to have a law librarian, they are a tremendous source of knowledge. And they probably know the lawyer that you're working with probably fairly well. And they can help you get on the right path. They can find resources for you and be really super helpful. You could scan the client file, which is in your document management system, and get the context of the file so you have more detail and you know the story of the client and the matter in which you're working on. You could ask the lawyer or the team within the lawyer's practice group if there is an equivalent document or something you could look at, and a precedent or something you could look at that could help you in this current piece of work. So there's internal resources likely that you can use. Then before you actually submit the work, I want you to check the formatting with the assistant or the paralegal. Ask them about your structure. Ask them about the precedent that you used. Get them to review your work. Some assistants and paralegals are really generous with their time, and they also know the lawyer that you're working with really well. And in some cases, many cases, it's easier on them if your work is meeting the mark, because in some cases it might bounce back to them to be adjusted. So they might be actually really happy to help you. And most staff members are really happy to work with a student. They know that it can be stressful and anxiety creating, and so they want to help you with that. And a good paralegal, I talked to a paralegal friend of mine a few years ago about this, and she works in real estate, and she was saying she really loves working with students because she'll spend time explaining to them what forms to use, what precedents to use, why this, not that. They'll go through your drafting. She will explain things because in her view, she saw her work with you, her investment in you. It will come back to her and the team. And she was very senior and she was really invested in her own practice group. So she saw it as a really important professional responsibility of hers. And she was really happy to work with students and really happy to see them advance in that field. And she wanted to be a part of that learning opportunity for those students. So if you can find a really great paralegal or legal assistant, do ask them for some help. Then I want you to do a final pass on your work before you actually submit it. So perhaps a paralegal has looked at it, maybe a legal assistant has looked at it, maybe a fellow student has proofed it for you, but ultimately it's your piece of work. And before it goes into the lawyer's office or by email or however you're delivering it, review it like it's an end of term paper that your name is on and it's in final draft. And I'm not talking about perfectionism here. I'm talking about accuracy. Are the client names correct? Are the party names, all the party names correct? Is the date there? Is the file number correct? Is pagination in place? Is the formatting right? Is there another party name in there? Did you use a precedent and bring something across by accident? Are all the details correct? Read it backwards if you have to. Reading backwards is a great pro tip in spotting typos, spotting various things that you might not otherwise catch. Read it in print. I've done this. I read online a lot, but sometimes if I really need to be thorough, I might print something out and read it in printed form. I don't know what it is, but sometimes printed form, you just see something differently that you missed when you're looking at a screen, just with a highlighter and a pen, and sit more comfortably in a different chair and just have a look. So sometimes that really helps. And then ask yourself, did I answer the question? Did I do the assignment? Did I answer the question correctly? Did I deliver on what was expected of me? Is it clear? Is it structured well? Am I speaking to the right audience? Am I delivering what's expected of me? Even those 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour if you have to, can mean the difference between quality work and work that looks sloppy and will diminish your reputation and start to dry up some of the work. So learn fast. If you get the same feedback twice, don't let it happen a third time. Do whatever you need to do to make sure it doesn't happen a third time. Even a second time is starting to push your luck a little bit in many cases with many lawyers. So really check those details, really take ownership of your work. And this matters even more so if you're working remotely, because you don't get those casual connections like you do in person, and you don't really overhear expectations. You don't really get a chance to bump into them and talk about the assignment like you would if you're in the office. So confirm more intentionally upfront. Review more carefully before you send it in. Avoid those quick sends. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm about to send an email, I have that little intuition that I should just check something. And I got to tell you, half the time I might have attached the wrong document, or I might have missed something in my email, an important detail. So listen to your intuition. I would be really, really careful every time you're doing something remotely. Just make sure that you're hitting the mark. And with instructions, by the way, it might even be worthwhile to send the instructions just in point form, bullet form, back to the lawyer to say, this is what I heard you tell me to do. This is the deadline. This is the format. You might even have a form in your email, like a template, assignment name, assigning lawyer, deadline, format of document, the use of the document. Is it going to the client? Is it internal for the lawyer? The research, the internal resources that you should use, people you could talk to in the firm. Maybe there's somebody in the firm that they can point you towards who would be another good resource for you. And then maybe check-in points with this assignment. If it's a longer assignment, maybe there's check-in points that make sense to both of you. So I would send that in an email and just make sure you've got it right. And that lawyer hopefully will take some time to review it. And if they don't, you can ask the assistant to put it in front of them again and have them review it. So the goal isn't just good work. The goal is easy to use work. Right? You want to make sure that your work is tied up with a bow. It's accurate. It's something that can slide into a file as easily as possible. Yes, you're going to need some corrections. Yes, you're going to need a little bit of oversight. Yes, you're going to get some things incorrect and wrong. That's just being a student. That's just for anybody who's starting new in a role. We've all been through various course corrections as juniors in our professions, but you want to minimize that as much as possible. So we talked about 4 signals that you're going to watch for. 1, your work is not evolving. So others are getting increasingly interesting, complex work, and you might be staying level. That might be a signal to check in on and see if you should be evolving or if there's an issue that we need to course correct. The second is the feedback is disappearing. You might have had feedback when you first started with the firm and people were happy to invest in you at that time, but now it's starting to scale back. So I want you to pay attention to that signal as well. The third one that we talked about just now in this episode, people aren't coming back to you. You've had assignments from lawyers and they're not coming back to you. You don't get to work on the same file. You're not seeing them again. That might be another signal that somebody doesn't want to trust you with their work. They want to work with other people that they feel they can trust more reliably. Your work requires a lot of correction. So if you're getting a lot of feedback, you're getting, a lot of track changes on documents, you're seeing your work getting completely pulled apart repeatedly, and you're getting a sense of somebody's getting a bit frustrated with you, that's definitely a signal that you want to pay attention to. So now you're starting to see the full picture. And at the very least, I want you to pay attention so that you can course correct. As I said earlier, the music is still playing. So we want you to go back in and find somebody to send you work so that you can course correct and you can demonstrate that you're great to work with, that the work matters to you, and that the assigning lawyer matters to you. And I'll just say that firms are not just asking, can this person do the work? They're asking, do I trust them? Are they easy to work with? And do we see you as a future member of our firm? That's what they're asking themselves. And we always want the answer to be yes. So course correct. Don't panic, but move quickly, course correct. You have some fixes in this podcast. Follow them as best you can. Communicate as best you can. Do what you can. That's all you can do. And I wish you the very best. All right. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining me.